Take a look around. Every blade of grass outside, every bird in the sky, even the very eyes you're using to watch this explainer right now, everything alive on Earth shares one fundamental, unbreakable rule. We are all children of carbon. But what if we weren't? What if life in the universe isn't always built from the familiar, light, airy elements we know? What if instead it was forged from a dense, heavy, and highly toxic metal? Here is what we're going to cover in this explainer. 1. Beyond carbon chauvinism. 2. The relativistic physics of lead. 3. Designing planet Chernobog. 4. Inside a lead cell. 5. Anatomy of the Plumbian. And finally, 6. Redefining alien life. All right, Section 1, Beyond Carbon Chauvinism. Now, the reason we always look for carbon when we're searching the cosmos is pretty simple. Carbon is an absolute chemical miracle. It has 4 valence electrons, which means it can bond with 4 other atoms all at the exact same time. It forms long chains, branching trees, elegant rings. It's literally the universe's ultimate Lego brick. And that brings us to a really important concept known as carbon chauvinism. Basically, this is the assumption that because carbon works so perfectly for us here on Earth, it just has to be the only way life can exist anywhere. Even when scientists try to get creative and imagine alternative life, they usually just drop one space down the periodic table to silicon, which is, a classic sci-fi trope. But I want to challenge you today. Let's skip right past silicon. Let's look all the way down group 14 of the periodic table, past germanium, past 10, down to the very bottom. Let's talk about lead. Moving into Section 2, Relativistic Physics of Lead. You see, normally, lead doesn't form those complex, life-giving chains like carbon does, and the reason why? It is utterly fascinating. When you compare a carbon atom directly with a lead atom, the difference in scale and physics is wild. Lead is in the exact same column as carbon, so it should have 4 easily shared electrons, right? Well, actually, lead has a supermassive nucleus packed with 82 protons. Because the positive pole from that nucleus is so insanely strong, Einstein's theory of relativity literally kicks in at the atomic level. The innermost electrons of a lead atom have to move at roughly 60% the speed of light just to avoid crashing into the center. And this incredible speed makes those inner electrons heavier, which physically shrinks their orbits and pulls all the outer shells inward. So because that entire atom is physically contracting, we get something called the inert pair effect. Those 2 outermost electrons get pulled in so tightly that they just become, chemically lazy. They absolutely refuse to bond. Because of this, lead prefers 2 bonds, not 4. Plus, think about the size difference we just talked about. Lead has a massive 180 picometer radius. Imagine 2 gigantic inflatable sumo wrestlers trying to shake hands. They can barely touch fingertips. That's exactly what lead atoms look like when they try to bond. Their outermost layers are so diffuse that pure lead bonds end up being incredibly weak. So here's the catch. A pure lead-to-lead biological backbone is straight up impossible. It would shatter like fragile glass. To build our alien, the biological foundation has to rely on alternating chains. We need lead atoms linked together by smaller binding atoms, things like oxygen or sulfur. Doing this creates incredibly stable structures known as polyplumbates or lead sulfides, and it's this alternating chain that forms the real structural foundation of our heavy metal alien. Section 3, Designing Planet Chernobog. Obviously, evolution doesn't just happen in a vacuum. We need to design the extreme macro environment that would literally force a lifeform to use heavy metal armor instead of agile, lightweight carbon. Let's contrast our nice, cozy Earth with a hypothetical nightmare world. Planet Chernobog. Picture a dense, chthonian planet orbiting a rapidly spinning neutron star, a pulsar. On Earth, we have water, 1G of gravity, and gentle visible light. On Chernobog, the planet is constantly getting blasted by apocalyptic levels of gamma radiation. If you dropped a carbon-based Earth organism there, its DNA would be instantly shredded into biological confetti. But lead is the ultimate armor. It is incredibly efficient at absorbing and scattering high-energy radiation. Plus, the extreme gravity and insane temperatures mean any water boils away instantly, leaving behind oceans of thick, warm, molten sulfur, which actually turns out to be the perfect biological solvent for this environment. That brings us to Section 4, Inside a Lead Cell. Now that we have this primordial soup of liquid sulfur and heavy metals, let's zoom way in and see what happens inside a microscopic lead cell. Carbon biology down here on Earth is, it's squishy. We rely on fatty lipid bilayers to hold our cells together. But our alien cells? They are essentially living crystals. They're built from those polyoxo plumbates we mentioned a minute ago. Imagine these beautiful, hollow, 3D metal oxide cages acting as the cellular membranes. They selectively let certain molecules in from the liquid sulfur ocean while keeping others out. It's basically a rigid, geometric, microscopic fortress. Now, you're probably wondering, how on earth does a metal cage store genetic blueprints without DNA? Well, it uses solid-state defect chemistry. Rather than using twisting double helices, our alien stores its genetic code by creating highly controlled, deliberate flaws in a lead sulfide crystal lattice. An extra atom right here, a missing atom over there. It functions exactly like the silicon microchips in your laptop. This cell is quite literally a self-replicating quantum hard drive, passing down crystalline blueprints to the next generation. Okay, but it needs energy to run that hard drive, right? Instead of photosynthesis, this cell uses something called radiosynthesis. The process is mind-blowing. A deadly gamma ray from the pulsar strikes the heavy lead nucleus of the cell. Because of the atom's massive size, it absorbs that radiation and violently ejects high-energy electrons. This is the photoelectric effect in action. The cell then captures these free electrons and routes them through biological nanowire circuits. These microscopic biological machines literally eat deadly radiation to generate their own internal electrical currents. All right, Section 5, Anatomy of the Plumbian. If you give those microscopic crystal cells a couple of billion years of evolution, you're going to get multicellular life. Let's look at the anatomy of the macroscopic apex predator that navigates this world. Let's meet the Plumbian. Right off the bat, we have to address the elephant in the room. 900. Lead is over 11 times denser than water. A creature exactly the size of a human would weigh roughly 900 kilograms. That is nearly a ton. Put that under Chernobog's crushing 2.5 times Earth gravity, and yeah, this creature absolutely cannot have thin, spindly legs. It has to be broad, heavily armored, and entirely reliant on the dense buoyancy of that liquid sulfur ocean just to support its own immense mass. Comparing our familiar Earth biology directly to Plumbian biology is completely mind-bending. Instead of squishy tissues, they have flexible, heavy metal armor that bends, sort of like a biological crumple zone. Instead of water-based blood, their hearts are pumping a liquid metal, specifically a lead-bismuth eutectic alloy that conducts heat and electricity with absolute perfect efficiency. And since visible light can't pierce that thick sulfur smog, they don't have normal eyes. They have crystal arrays made of galena, acting as infrared semiconductors. They literally see heat and magnetic fields. Oh, and they don't speak with vocal cords. They communicate by broadcasting radiotelepathic electromagnetic pulses directly from their crystalline nervous systems. No way, right? Now, to support a predator that incredibly complex, you need a vast ecosystem. Down on the shores of the sulfur seas, the primary producers are towering, jagged spires of lead oxide. They're basically metallic trees acting as giant solar panels to catch gamma rays. Feeding on them are these herbivores, segmented metal slugs that actually use biological hydrochloric acid to chew through the crystal spires and absorb the stored electrical energy. And stalking those slugs? Our apex predator, the Plumbian. But listen, Hunt here does not look like a cheetah chasing down a gazelle. Because of their immense mass, life operates on this bizarrely slow temporal scale. It's truly a slow-motion chess match. Every single movement requires massive kinetic energy. A predator uses these superconducting biological tasers to paralyze its prey, and the hunt itself just unfolds incredibly slowly. A single fight between two heavy metal giants might literally take weeks to finish. And when that long, heavy metal life finally comes to an end, the aftermath is pretty striking. They don't rot. There are no carbon-based bacteria around to break them down into mush. Instead, they just succumb to oxidation. They rust. They slowly crystallize into these permanent, beautiful monuments of lead sulfide, eventually just rejoining the planetary crust they were born from. Finally, Section 6, Redefining Alien Life. Let's zoom out from Chernobog to the wider cosmos and look at the broader philosophical takeaways of this whole thought experiment. Ultimately, what this explainer proves is that life is not just a specific collection of carbon atoms. At its very core, life is simply persistent information, trying its absolute hardest to survive. It's the universe actively organizing itself to resist entropy. Whether that information is written in squishy, watery strands of Earth DNA, or it's etched as controlled flaws into a heavy metal crystal lattice under the blinding glare of a radioactive pulsar, life, if you give it enough time, finds a way to persist.
To assume life can only exist exactly as it does on our wet, rocky little world is to drastically underestimate the sheer tenacity of chemistry in our infinitely vast universe. So I want to leave you with this one provocative question. What other bizarre biochemistries could exist out there? I mean, could there be life based entirely on arsenic? Could there be plasmic life forms thriving right in the heart of a dying star? The possibilities are literally endless, and exploring them is what makes science so thrilling. Thanks for joining me on this explainer today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep expanding your view of the universe.
Please like and subscribe.